Hey guys, how are we doing? Just thought I'd bring to you a video about my thoughts on the first two episodes of One Punch Man Season 3. As you can probably tell, this isn't going to be an edited video or anything like that, so you guys can just put this on in the background while you bury the bodies in the backyard, or I don't know, maybe your day doesn't look like mine. So whatever it is that you do, you can just throw this on in the background and we can talk through the episodes together. So I haven't hated season 3 of One Punch Man so far, but as probably most of you, I don't exactly love it either. I know most people are coming from sort of it's either, you know, all hands on deck defend season 3, or it's if you like season 3, you deserve to have a bullet in your head. Like there doesn't seem to be much nuance between those two fields. You either hate it or I'm not going to use the word love it. I mean, you either hate it or you try to defend it all you can. So I'm somewhere in the middle. So normally being in the middle means that both sides ends up hating you. So maybe I'm not in for a good video here, but I thought I'd give my thoughts on it, seeming as some people did ask. But again, this is just nice, easy flowing video. Just put it on in the background or you can just watch, this really old One Punch Man fighting game gameplay. So there you go. Anyways, without any further ado, the first thing I want to say is just a message for everybody. And that message for everybody is whether you are enjoying this season or not enjoying this season, because you are completely within your right to criticize it as you are to enjoy it. What I will say to you is, at the very least, try to not go into every season 3 episode expecting to hate it or looking for a reason to hate it, because I've had a look around at some reaction videos just to see what the general vibe is from some people that are watching it, like other creators, just to see what they're saying. And you know honestly, some of these people have heard so much negative press around season 3 that it's starting to affect how people view episodes, in total. And I'm not going to obviously say names, but like there was one reactor I saw on YouTube, and as she was getting ready to start up episode 2 of season 3, like the look on her face, it was as if she wasn't about to watch season 3 episode 2 of One Punch Man. It looked as if she was about to watch a hostage video, gearing herself up to watch somebody plead for their life while wearing, an orange jumpsuit. Like that is the kind of negative, anticipation. There's a word for that, but I can't think of it right now. But that is the kind of like negative anticipation that some people have before they've even started the episode. Again, fine to criticize, fine to sort of be disappointed, but when you're walking into the episode being like, oh, can't wait to pick this apart, how do you ever expect to enjoy it? That's all I'm gonna say. And again, it goes to both sides. Doesn't mean you can't dislike it or have criticisms about it or think it could be better. But come on, don't walk into the episode expecting to hate the damn thing. Otherwise, you're just gonna trick your mind into not being able to enjoy it whatsoever. And that's a shame. Okay, so for episode 1, I'm gonna go through the good first. So for episode 1, I liked the art style. Generally a lot of the characters, they're drawn a lot nicer than what we've seen in season 2. Even some characters are drawn a lot nicer than what we've seen in season 1. So the art style for these characters looks really good across the board. Maybe there's a few in there that didn't quite come over too great, but overall I think all of the characters looked very nice. I'm always kind of iffy on Atomic Samurai because it always looks as if they add 20 years on top of him. I mean, I don't know if all of you read the manga, but when you look at Atomic Samurai in the manga and then you look at Atomic Samurai in season 1 and season 2, it looks like it's not Atomic Samurai, but Atomic Samurai's cousin. He just doesn't, something's missing about him. I don't know, he just doesn't look as good. Maybe in like the opening chapters it's different, but mid to late point manga One Punch Man, Atomic Samurai looks a lot different than I think like how he is portrayed in the anime. That's just a personal pet peeve of mine though. Same goes for Ian. I don't know what it is about Ian. They don't make him look as good as he looks in the manga either. funny, how master and apprentice both seem to suffer from the same thing. Across the board, though, art style, very nice. Music, I like the music as well. I'm not saying I'm out here jamming to the tracks, but I thought the music fit a lot of the scenes very well. I was pretty happy with it. It didn't come it didn't come as a negative to me, so I would say it's probably one of the good things. On top of that, I also liked the still shots. Let me just clarify that. Not that I want more still shots, but the still shots that they gave, I think looked good. When they do the certain lighting, like you had that reddish glow when Tatsumaki was on there for episode 1. She looked really good. And there's probably one or two other instances where the still shots are very beautiful. They look great. I guess this coincides kind of with the art style. But yeah, they look very stylish. And then obviously we're going to come to the bad of episode 1. And that is, as people are calling it, One Frame Man. And here's the thing. Episode 1 isn't an action heavy episode. So I don't think anyone really expected it that knew the material for it to be, some kind of circus show, in terms of the animation. I'm in that camp as well. I don't need anything crazy animation wise for episode 1 and what it gave to us. With that being said, even though I wasn't expecting a lot of crazy animation because there was no need for it, it still managed to underwhelm me. It still managed to look just strange, like something was wrong. I know people calling it PowerPoint and, slide this, slide that, blah, blah, blah. You've heard it all by this point. But it just, even not expecting a lot of animation, it still somehow just looked off, which I think is a big shame. The pacing, some of these scenes were giving me whiplash. Some characters, they didn't even have enough time to respond. Before you know it, the scene has, just whipped to a different scene. It's like I'm in a boxing match. I'm getting hit by Mayweather. Every single punch is a new scene. I'm like, what is this pacing? It's, giving me scene whiplash. It was just too much. I'm not to say the whole episode was like that, but it just was kind of weird. Look at that nice finish on the match there with my mask. Love that. But yeah, I feel like the pacing and the scene whiplash didn't really fill me with confidence. So like those are the main takeaway points that I had for episode 1. I think overall I would give episode 1 a 9 out of 10. I'm joking. I would give it probably a 5 or a 6 out of 10. And I'm saying that from the perspective that I know what this episode was supposed to be. Because there will be people who will rate episode 1, they'll be like, oh, that's a 2 out of 10. But in their mind, they thought episode 1 was going to be, Saitama jumping from Earth to Jupiter, and you got Genos following him, and they're fighting 20 different people at once. Some people don't know what they were supposed to get from episode 1 of season 3. So there's kind of like two camps. It's you kind of knew it wasn't going to start crazy, and that's reflected in your score. And then there's other people who thought season 3 was going to start, with like Boris's little brother showing up. He's like, you killed Big Boros. and then everything starts flying off the handle. That was never going to be the case, but some people might have thought that because they don't know the material, which is not a knock on them. It's not their fault to know something that they don't know. But that's the way, for me, as someone who kind of expected this sort of episode, I still have to give it a 5 or 6 out of 10 because I have seen episodes where no fighting has occurred in another anime, and yet that episode was still very good. So I'm gonna give it maybe like a 5 out. Yeah, I'll say a 5 out of 10 for episode 1. But again, a 5 out of 10 where I can still see the positives, and I'm not acting like it just spat in my mouth in the times of when we were suffering from a pandemic. It wasn't a great episode, but I understand where we had to go with that. And that brings us to episode 2. So episode 2, as I'm sure many of you would agree, a lot better. Now again, I feel as if maybe there's a bit of unfair criticism of episode 2 because again, here's the thing. People are so against One Punch Man Season 3 right now that they go into episodes not ready to watch an episode, but more ready to critique 24 minutes of animation. Do you know what I'm trying to... I feel like some of you might understand what I mean by that, some of you might not. They went into episode 2, and this is going to happen a lot, by the way, for the rest of the season. Again, good, bad, you like it, you don't like it, whatever. This is going to happen. A lot of people are going to fall into this trap where they load up every single One Punch Man season 3 episode, and they're not ready to watch an episode. They're ready to critique 24 minutes of animation. And that's not how you should be watching something. Because now you would watch like Jujutsu Kaisen, Bleach, Dragon Ball, One Piece, Naruto, name any anime you like. When you watch those episodes, there are going to be transitional scenes, small moments, inconsequential parts of the episode where you are not grading that animation. But people for One Punch Man Season 3 are. And that's the thing. You know, there's a bit of a very unfair standard. And it's not to say you can't criticize these scenes, but people are really looking out for it in ways that they wouldn't do that when they watch other shows, which I think is a bit disingenuous when you're trying to just find anything to dunk on the episode for. And I think that's a bit unfair. Again, criticism is fine. Before some of you, well, what, I can't say it's not good. Of course you can say it's not good. It's completely up to you. But I would just say, if you're going into an episode being like, what am I going to catch this time? You know, how are you ever going to enjoy something the way that you would like to? Even if it's not 10 out of 10, because we all knew, even the hopers like myself, we all knew season 3 was not going to look as good as season 1. So why are we surprised that it doesn't look that good? We already knew it was going to be like that. Anyway, where was I? So yeah, the good of episode 2, the artwork, again, looks really nice. Love the way they've drawn, you know, Garo. Garo in season 2, sometimes this dude looked 47 years old, and he's 18. For once, I see so many people as well, they're like, what the hell, Garo's 18? I'm like, yeah, I know, because season 2 made him look like he was 39 and, you know, recovering from drug abuse in some scenes, the way they drew him. So I'm happy that Garo looks, you know, the way I'm happy with. A lot of the artwork looks really nice. They draw Fubuki absolutely amazing. So yeah, that's a good part of it. The artwork is really good. I enjoyed the comedy as well for this episode. The comedy, I felt like I could have given it as a plus to episode 1 as well, but it would have been a little bit forced because some of it didn't really like land great. But in here, episode 2, I really enjoyed the comedy. It was really funny. Remember, guys, One Punch Man is a fighting anime, but it's also a comedy. You're allowed to laugh while still while still being disappointed with some of the animation. You know, you're allowed to like more than one thing. Don't worry. No one's gonna come and, you know, put you under arrest. We only arrest people for opinions in the UK over here, so most of you are from the US. Don't worry, you're safe. But the comedy was really good. I liked it a lot, especially with Saitama and the Diner Dash thing. I thought that was, you know, really, really funny. The scenery in some scenes were really, really good. Here's the thing as well, guys. Like, I'm not an animation expert. I'm not some guy who knows the producers by name. I'm not one of those people. But what I would say is the scenery and the artwork looks so good for the majority of it that, you know, sometimes the animation is going to be a little bit less than maybe another show, but that show wouldn't have as good artwork or as good scenery as the One Punch Man Season 3 has, at least from episode 2, right? So in that scene where Garo is walking up the hill, the background looked, you know, fantastic. And I was like, wow, that looks really, really good. And the backgrounds just looked really, really solid for a lot of it, at least from my opinion. I'm not saying it objectively, this is just my opinion. So yeah, sometimes it's a bit of a give and take. Yeah, the animation hasn't been tip top, but the artwork's been really nice and the scenery looks great. And probably someone's going to make fun of me for that comment, but I guess you can't have everything, and that's just the way I look at it. Would I want the animation to be better? Of course I would. Don't you worry about that. Of course I would. If you give me a button to press that will make that happen, I'll headbutt it. But, you know, there's no button to do that. The animation, for the most part, was a lot better in this episode as well. You know, obviously the Royal Ripper stuff, or, you know, King the Ripper, as it's called in the thing. The Garo movements. A lot of the animation looked a lot better than what we saw in the first episode. Am I trying to tell you that it's peak season 1 animation? No, obviously not. But I still think it looked good. Remember guys, something can still look good, but not be your definition of the best animation ever. If One Punch Man is giving you some 6 or 7 out of 10 animation, just because you're really hating on it right now doesn't mean you need to pretend that that was some 2 or 3 out of 10 animation, right? You're allowed to say some of the things are just good or decent or not bad. Still shots looked really good, like the Fubiki one in the diner when it did the lighting on her face and she's, you know, feeling very self-confident. Love that shot, looked very, very good. Again, so the still shots, when they do them, they do look very, very nice. And again, I know ain't no one coming to watch One Punch Man for the still shots, but they are still a positive for me when they are done well. Yeah, what else? I guess we'll go on to the bad. Hero Slider, the Slide You incident, Jeju Slideland, Tony Hawk's Pro Hunter. I don't know what you guys want to call that sliding down the hill from Garo, but obviously it wasn't fantastic. I've seen some people try to defend it, and I've seen some people try to make out like it's the reason why we can't have peace in the world. Listen, did it look stupid? Yes, it did look stupid. Was it manga accurate? I don't know, I guess you could argue that, but it doesn't matter if it looks stupid, right? It didn't look great. But here's the thing, guys, this goes back to probably what I was saying a little bit earlier. Just because that 2 or 3 second bit looks so dumb doesn't mean the rest of the episode has to be punished for it, you know? Did the slide look silly? Yes, it did. Do you need to hate the whole episode over it? I don't think so. I think that's a bit extreme. I honestly think that's a bit extreme. So, you know. And again, some of the static shots panned too much. So to go back and I think it was at the start when they were showing the crowd on episode 2. We were lingering on that crowd for so long. I'm like, this is so much pan. Even a pansexual would have enough of it. What is this? Pan's Labyrinth? Stop panning the damn scene. So much panning. I'm like, dude, we get it. So even though I can say the artwork is really nice, the scenery looks really good, doesn't mean I want to look at one scene for like 10-15 seconds or whatever it may have been. But again, some scenes just sat there for too long, like at the start of episode 2. If there were any others, I can't really remember it too much. Again, this is just going off the top of my head. You've got other creators that are doing really in-depth breakdowns of the video of the episode, sorry. So you gotta have me doing it as well. But yeah, overall, I did like episode 2 a lot more. I would give it a 7 out of 10. And movement right again, one punch there by Saitama. Unfortunate. Yeah, so I would give episode 2 a 7 out of 10. Episode 1, 5 out of 10. Episode 2, 7 out of 10. And that's where I would put it. And I'm trying to see it from both sides. So I'm trying not to be overly harsh, where I'm just attributing every bad thing under the sun to it because I'm expecting it to be bad, or I'm nitpicking at it where I wouldn't do that with other things. But at the same time, I don't want to give it too much leeway, because let's not pretend, you know, that it's given us 10 out of 10. It's obviously not doing that. So I don't know how some of my viewers will feel about it. I know how a lot of people feel about it. You know, they hate season 3, and then some people are defending season 3. So you're either a part of the siege or you're in the castle walls defending it, essentially. But I like to be somewhere in the middle. I'm expecting good things. I'm not expecting great things. I think this is probably where a lot of people have gotten this feeling of where they just can't enjoy any single aspect of season 3 so far, because they were just expecting something like season 1 when we all knew that wasn't going to happen. But I don't think that means you're not allowed, or at least, you know, you shouldn't stop yourself from being able to have fun with season 3 at the same time. There are things you can enjoy while being critical of it. There are things you can say, oh, that was good, while still pointing out the legendary hero slide, right? You can do all of that stuff. But anyway, that's kind of how I feel about it. Overall, is it as good as we would have wanted so far? No. Could it be better? Yes. Are there still things to enjoy though? I believe so. It's going to come down to you. At the end of the day, only you can decide if you enjoy something or not. But I would say, don't force yourself to hate something that you can still find positives in. And don't go into every episode, if you can help it, ready to rip it apart. You know, this ain't America's Got Talent or whatever. You know, you haven't you haven't got to destroy this thing while it's just trying to do its thing. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Watch it as an episode first, and then afterwards maybe try and, you know, tear it down. But for me, it's been okay so far. 5 out of 10 and 7 out of 10. Hoping that the fights will, and the future episodes will definitely pick it up for us. But all we can do is hope. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed that, let me know. I might do this again for more episodes depending on the reception. I might not, but it'd be the same format either way. But yeah, thank you guys. Check out the videos that I do on the channel. Leave a like, leave a comment. You know, stay, what's the word, reasonable in the comments. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. Saitama World out. Thank you for the support.